Are we back now? Always fun when you go live and then realize that your microphone was plugged into the wrong jack. So fun. We'll start over. Massive injury updates from Sean McDermott today. One Bills Drive, as there is a long list of names. We will get to them all. I will start off with what I think are the two most impactful. One, we have Curtis Samuel. Let me know in chat if you're able to hear me now. We should be good. I think we're good. But confirmation in chat would be very helpful. We'll start off with Curtis Samuel. To me, that's the biggest name on the list because of all the names that came out today. There is a Damar Hamlin on there. He's the one, Curtis Samuel, that was projected to have the biggest starting role. And now he's week to week. And you have to remember, with the Bills schedule the way it is, week 1 is 20 days from now. But they have a week 2 game on Thursday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. So 20 days and then 24 days they play again. So these guys that are week to week are not just in jeopardy of missing week 1, but also week 2. And then when you factor in the fact that it's a short turnaround, you do wonder if the Bills are going to be conservative in an NFC game against the Cardinals when they have an AFC East game with the Dolphins 4 days later. Just some things to think about. But devastating news for Curtis Samuel. He was a guy that is going to, assuming he is back healthy, matter a lot for this offense. And this is not a wide receiver group that is overly deep to begin with. They've already lost Chase Claypool. And what are you going to say about Chase Claypool? Marquez Valdez-Scantling today was ruled out for multiple weeks, which definitely puts him in jeopardy of missing the opener. And now you're looking at a group that is Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, and Khalil Shakir. And if you lose one of those guys, you're down to Tyrell Shavers. And Tyrell Shavers has had a good camp, but there is such a large gap between having a good camp and being ready to help the team in a prominent role on Sundays. So the Bills are in a tricky spot. They certainly didn't rule out Curtis Samuel, but turf toes can be tricky. The Bills are going to have to make a move at wide receiver. Now, I still don't think that even with a turf toe, even with the week-to-week tag, even with concerns that it could linger, that this would put the Bills in play to go after a Brandon Ayuk or a T. Higgins or a CeeDee Lamb. Like if those guys were ever available, I don't think the Bills will be in play for those guys this year. It just doesn't make financial sense. I would love it if they went after Brandon Ayuk. I don't think that is going to be anything that they're going to be doing. So it really does come down to what guys are on the street. I happened to look yesterday, and boy, oh boy, is it not a very appealing list of names. You're talking about guys like Michael Thomas from New Orleans, which the fact that he doesn't have a job right now probably tells you more about the person than the player. And he really has fallen off. So it's going to be tricky. But the Bills are going to have to make a move somewhere. They're going to have to add some wide receiver depth. They did last week with Damiere Byrd and Deon Cain. Those guys, though, I mean, you want to talk about training camp bodies. You cannot count on those guys to play prominent roles. An interesting name to think about, Isaiah McKenzie, very much on the roster bubble for the Giants. Potentially, he's somebody, has familiarity with the system, could come in and do some of the things that Curtis Samuel can do. Knows Josh Allen. I mean, checkbox. That could be as good as you're going to get at this point in time. So I expect a move or two at wide receiver this week with the updates on MVS and most importantly, Curtis Samuel. Okay. Mitch Trubisky. A lot of people were losing faith in Mitch Trubisky. Anyway, he went out and started against the Steelers and didn't do much to regain the confidence. And now he is out multiple weeks. The Bills absolutely have to make a move at quarterback. I threw two names out from the Bills chat Twitter earlier today, PJ Walker and Kyle Allen. Both of those guys are currently on another team's roster, and that makes it tricky. PJ Walker is third string in Seattle behind Geno Smith and Sam Howell. And then Kyle Allen is third string in Pittsburgh behind the two guys we saw this weekend, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Both of those guys are probably going to be cut at roster cutdown day, and you can get them off of waivers. The problem is you have to wait a couple weeks to get that done, and time is not on the Bills' side right now. They need somebody in-house to learn the system now. So if they really wanted one of those guys, they probably would have to float a late-round pick to those teams to get it done. And you know, something like a 6th-round pick swapped for a 7th-round pick, or just throw them a 7th-round pick and get those guys in house. Those would be two names that I would be very much keeping an eye on. Kyle Allen was here last year. That would make the most sense. And then PJ Walker's a guy that spent some time in Carolina with Joe Brady when he was there in 2020 and 2021. Ryan Tannehill has been a popular name on Bill's Twitter. He's certainly out there. There's been some rumblings that maybe he's going to want more money than league minimum, which is something the Bills just really probably aren't going to have the appetite to do. Taylor Heineke's a guy that's third string in Atlanta right now behind Penix and Cousins. That's a guy that you could probably trade for. I looked at his contract yesterday, and it would cost you a little over $1 million against the cap, but you'd have to, Atlanta would have to eat some money on that one too. And they might want to carry 3 quarterbacks. So we shall see. But Sean McDermott did say the Bills have already talked about bringing in some quarterbacks. Right now, the Bills are one injury away from Ben DiNucci taking meaningful snaps, and we'll see where that goes. But that is not the end of the list. Quentin Morris out multiple weeks. That probably means that Zach Davidson is going to make this squad. Now, Zach Davidson has been very exciting in camp. He's a big body. He's a really good athlete. He catches the ball well. Quentin Morris is an injury that stinks, but it's one that the Bills can overcome. Looking down the list, Damar Hamlin, another big one. Damar Hamlin is a guy that was front and center in the safety competition, starting opposite Taylor Rapp. Bills already down Cole Bishop. Bills already down Mike Edwards. Damar Hamlin has been pretty much the de facto starter along with Taylor Rapp. Did not play this week, and now he is week to week, which would elevate Cam Lewis to that starting spot. Cam Lewis and Taylor Rapp being your starting safeties, I don't think it has to be a bad thing, because I of the personal belief, this is just my opinion, you don't have to agree with me, I think Cam Lewis is a better football player than Damar Hamlin. I just believe that. I think he's better in coverage. I think he has better instincts back there. I'm perfectly fine with Cam Lewis playing ahead of Damar Hamlin, but the larger problem is the two biggest responses the Bills had this offseason to upgrade safety were bringing in Mike Edwards via free agency. He's out. Bringing in Cole Bishop in the second round of the draft. He's out. Got a little bit of good news on both of those guys today. But now you're looking at guys like Kareem Jackson, who's maybe starting to feel his way in here. Kendall Williamson, who is just like a roller coaster on the field. I don't think the Bills are going to be in position to play him. So if the season were to start today, it doesn't. Let's all remember that. It's a good thing. It would be Cam Lewis and it would be Taylor Rapp at safety. So that also pulls Cam Lewis off of cornerback and kind of clears things up at the cornerback situation there. Mike Edwards and Cole Bishop and Nicholas Murrow, the linebacker, will do walkthroughs and individuals this week. Sean McDermott was very clear, though. Mike Edwards is not going to play in this preseason game. None of the starters are. And Mike Edwards still has a long ramp up to go before he's ready for anything beyond individuals and walkthrough. He did not clarify if that's the same thing for Cole Bishop, but the fact that he grouped him in with Nicholas Murrow and Cole Bishop and Mike Edwards tells me all three of those guys are still a ways away from really doing any kind of team drills, meaningful football. And for Mike Edwards, maybe with him being a veteran, you feel more comfortable about when he comes back, rushing him along. Cole Bishop is a rookie. I'd love to see him out there, but I don't know how the Bills could possibly feel comfortable throwing him out there. Week 1 against Kyler Murray, by the way, who is just a trick shot quarterback that if you take one misstep at safety can make you pay. And then 4 days later, you're in Miami with the eye candy offense to end all eye candy offenses, chasing down Tyreek Hill and chasing down Jalen Waddle. So tough spot for the Bills. Other names that popped up today, Javon Sullivan and Austin Johnson, just going to be limited this week. Very good news on Javon Sullivan because he is somebody that has been coming on strong for the Bills, is going to make this roster. So just being limited this week with the calf injury he had, that is certainly some good news for the Bills. Baylon Spector. Let's talk about Baylon Spector for a second. Baylon Spector also week to week. We all know what happened on Saturday with Joe Andreessen. He had a shot, he took the shot, and he took advantage of it. And I am going to put out a 53-man roster from Bills Chat this week, and I'm going to have Joe Andreessen on that 53-man roster. And when you look at Baylon Spector's career, there have been 2 glaring opportunities for the Bills where they could use him to step up, an opportunity for him to leave his mark on this team, and he's been a no-show on both of those opportunities. injury related. That's poor injury luck, but it's the reality of his situation. Last year in the playoffs against Kansas City, we all know the AJ Klein covering Travis Kelce game that we still all have PTSD about. The reason why AJ Klein was out there is because Matt Milano was out, Terrell Bernard was out, Tyrell Dodson was playing with one good shoulder, and oh, by the way, Balin Spector, he was out too. That's why AJ Klein was on the field. Lost in the AJ Klein jokes that we all make for a guy that came off his couch and played his ass off for the Bills and just wasn't physically capable of doing what they asked him to do is the fact that Balin Spector was not available. Fast forward to this year, Matt Milano goes down in training camp. Opportunity opens up with Sean McDermott saying, I don't feel comfortable throwing Terrell Bernard out there in this preseason game, given the state of our linebacker group. Opportunity to start, get some reps on tape, get a chance to really let the rest of the league see what you can do. Balin Spector's hurt again. Joe Andreessen's not hurt. Joe Andreessen goes in there and lights the world on fire, 12 tackles, makes splash plays. At times, looked like the best player on the field when it was ones against ones. So great for Joe Andreessen. If he, for some reason, doesn't make the Bills 53, he's going to be on a roster somewhere because you are not going to hide that guy when all 32 teams have access to that tape. But Dorian Williams, available. Deion Jones, available. Joe Andreessen, available. Balin Spector, again, doesn't answer the call. Nicholas Morrow, does he still play for this team? I know he was there early in training camp. He's going to do walkthroughs this week. I think he'll probably still make the team. But gosh, at some point, you got to get back on the field, get off the bike. And it's frustrating, but I agree 100% with the McChronicle here. The saying goes, availability is the best ability. And you know Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane believe in that. And for a situation where they have been desperate at linebacker, Balin Spector has not been there to help twice now. And Joe Andreessen was not only there, but he was there and he shined. He's a story of that game. I think that's absolutely going to factor in when it comes down to roster cut downs. What else do we have here? We mentioned Quentin Morris. I think we got Casey Toohill is going to get back later this week. Casey Toohill's path to the roster is slim to none. I mean, he's behind Javon Solomon, Kingsley Jonathan. He would need, quite frankly, I hate to say it because it might happen, he'd need more injuries at the defensive line for that to factor in. Austin Johnson being only limited this week is fantastic because you worry that maybe that could be a multi-week injury. He's a guy that's going to matter a lot for the Bills. So I think the biggest thing to take away here is the Bills are going to have to bring in a quarterback pronto. Would not be surprised if they flip a draft pick to get a preferred option like a Kyle Allen or a PJ Walker. And they're going to have to do some more digging to fill out this wide receiver group. And, you know, I'm trying not to vent too much about the wide receiver group as it's built because I see the vision. I truly do. I see the vision of let's see what we have this year. And then next year, when we have more resources, let's see if we have to aggressively add to it. But at the same time, even if you're the most optimistic Bills fan, and you look at this and say, man, they have Kincaid and Knox to really help out. And then, you know, Josh Allen can make any wide receiver look good. I mean, you can talk yourself into anything. We've all been there. You got to wonder, like, man, you have this Lamborghini of Josh Allen. And at some point, don't you think I don't think you can be over aggressive in giving him weapons. And I think that's my biggest issue. And it's not just a 2024 issue. I've been asking for the Bills to give Josh Allen more weapons since the moment they lost that Cincinnati playoff game. It felt like that day that one team was loaded with weapons and one team had Diggs and the quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Burrow. And then, you know, from that point forward, we saw Kincaid brought in, we saw the emergence of James Cook, but still, I am greedy when it comes to weapons. I want the Bills to treat this roster like the Colts did when they had Peyton Manning, where they're spending a first-round pick on Reggie Wayne. They're spending a first-round pick on Joseph Adai. They're spending a first-round pick on Edgerrin James. They're spending a first-round pick on Dallas Clark. That's what I want the Bills to do. And to their credit, the last 2 years, they've spent a first-round pick on Dalton Kincaid, and they spent a second-round pick. But let's be honest, it was basically a late first-round pick on Keon Coleman. But still, there's nothing proven here right now. And Josh Allen, unfortunately, is going to have to be Superman probably more than a lot of us wanted him to have to be. It's going to be challenging. But as we have said multiple times, if Josh Allen goes out and has a vintage Josh Allen season this year, when the national opinion seems to be that all the talent is gone, how are you going to deny him the MVP? So I guess that's the good news. The other good news, and this should not be lost on anybody, when you look at all these injuries, I'm pointing to a screen that you guys can't see. So what am I doing? When you look at all these injuries that came out of this preseason game, sloppy field in Pittsburgh, does Sean McDermott deserve a little bit of credit? I think he deserves a lot of credit. His gut told him before that game that Josh Allen and Terrell Bernard shouldn't be on the field. And when you look at the fact that the quarterback that was on the field got hurt and all these other guys got hurt, I know we all love to make fun of Sean McDermott for 13 seconds. We can all point to the strategy timeouts, the clapping on the sidelines. We all have our things about Sean McDermott that bothers us. The Bills dodged a bullet this weekend, and Sean McDermott is the number one reason why. So I think he deserves a lot of credit because when you look down this list, it's a long list of names. Quentin Morris, it's a third string tight end. How consequential is that truly going to be on game day? Balin Spector, linebacker 6. How consequential is that going to be? Damar Hamlin, maybe a starting safety, but I think Cam Lewis is pretty much the same. Curtis Samuel is the big one. Curtis Samuel is absolutely the big one. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. Javon Solomon, backup defensive end, 5th defensive end on the roster. Injuries are going to happen. You have to play somebody in these preseason games. I think Sean McDermott deserves a lot of credit. So that's where I want to end it on with the good news. It was fun to go live today. I happened to be working from home because if you hear some noise in the background, my daughter's in the room watching TikTok or YouTube or whatever the kids do these days. She's homesick from school. And so I'm working from home and I was able to go live and chat about with you guys. Let's see what's going on in chat. I've been trying to get the news here. Let's see. Jack Glimpse. This year definitely feels like a let's see what we need next year type of season. I agree with you. And I think that's a valid point, Jack. And I think that people that read that and take it the wrong way, nobody is saying that the Bills are punting on the season, but the Bills are being very realistic about what their resources are this year. This was a very much clear the decks for next year kind of season when they took on the money it cost to get rid of Mitch Morse, the money it cost to get rid of Stephon Diggs. And they still, I think, have a very good shot to make the playoffs. And if you get into the playoffs in this league, you got a shot to win it all. And that's all it takes. But I don't think that these particular Bills with their vision for this year, for what it's going to be, should necessarily push all the chips in to cover up some of these leaks that have come out of training camp. Jack also says Texans wide receiver depth is insane. I mean, holy cow. They have Tank Dell. They have Stephon Diggs. They have Nico Collins. And they have the kid from Alabama whose name is escaping me right now. And then they obviously have Robert Woods. They have so many guys. And it'd be nice if maybe one of those guys, Noah Brown's even there. So maybe one of those guys will break free and be a Bill. You just never know. Roy Collins, if not for Josh Allen, this team would resemble those drought era teams. Yeah, I think that's true. I will say if not for Josh Allen is a huge part of that, though, because I think a lot of those drought era teams would have been Super Bowl contenders with Josh Allen. You throw Josh Allen on those Kyle Orton 2014 Bills, where Jim Shorts was the defensive coordinator, with Sammy Watkins, and was that CJ Spiller and Fred Jackson, and they still had Robert Woods. That would have been some fun. That would have been a lot of fun. They would have made some serious noise. You put Josh Allen, I mean, he was like 2 at the time. You put Josh Allen on the 2004 Bills that lost to the Steelers week 17 with that defense, Takeel Spikes, Sam Adams, Pat Williams, Nate Clements, Lawyer Malloy, Troy Vincent. And, they had offensive weapons. They had Eric Moulds and Lee Evans, and they had Travis Henry and Willis McGahee. Put Josh Allen with those guys, they're making a run. They're making a serious run. So I get the point, Roy, 100%. This is not 2022, the offseason where the Bills brought in Von Miller. And you look at this roster and you think this roster is stacked. Like if Mitch Trubisky, he was the backup quarterback in 2021. If he has to come in and play a few games, this roster is enough to carry him. That's not the case right now. There's not a lot of stars left in that building. One of them left last week via injury, Matt Milano. Josh Allen's the best player on this team. I don't know that the Bills have anybody else on their roster that's nationally considered to be a star in this league. Von Miller is a cachet star player in this league. I don't know that he still is playing like that. In fact, I don't think he is. I think Taron Johnson is somebody that plays at that level, but he's a nickel cornerback. Those guys generally never get their shine they deserve, and I don't think he's viewed that way nationally. It was nice to see Mina Kimes say something nice about him. And then from there, it's like Dalton Kincaid is on the way, but certainly not a star yet. And, you know, I think Christian Benford and Terrell Bernard are two guys that have the potential to have the trajectory to be stars, but they're not there yet. Deion Dawkins is a Pro Bowl left tackle, but I don't know that he's anybody that comes to the national mindset of like the best tackles in the league. He's not talked about in the same breath as Trent Williams. So yeah, I think that the Bills right now are a Josh Allen show. And quite frankly, they've been that the last 2 years. A lot of the names that left this offseason were not the best versions of themselves. They were big names. They're players that I loved, but they weren't playing at their all-pro levels, even though they're former all-pros. And that's important to keep in mind. I think the biggest loss the Bills had this offseason was Diggs, but that I think there's other reasons that went into that besides the fact that he was not at the tippy top of the league like he was a couple years back. But I've rambled on now, kind of turned this into like, let's just vent about whatever's on our mind. Anyway, Bills Chat podcast from recorded Sunday night, uploaded Monday morning, does not have any of these injury updates, but we give you a full breakdown on the Bills Steelers preseason game. We talk a lot about Joe Andreessen. We talk a lot about the Matt Milano injury. So if you guys would check that out, that'd be great. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps Luca and I out so much as we are trying to build this channel up. We are not part of any brand. This is just Luca, myself, and occasionally Stokes just hopping on, making videos and trying to pump out as much content as we possibly can to cover these Buffalo Bills. Luca and I will be back next Monday morning for Bills Chat Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Bills Chat Podcast on Twitter. We're very active on there. We love interacting with all of you. And I will talk to you next time on Bills Chat Quick Chat.